First graders, good morning. It is Monday. Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 5 of Surprise Island from the Boxcar Children. Chapter 5 is called Summer Plan. What's your summer plan? Summer plan. We must go exploring on the island, said Henry, the morning after the clam digging. It may rain any day, and the days are just flying by. We can go this morning, said Jessie, coming to the doorway of the barn. The clams will not take very long to cook. And that's all we're going to have for dinner, except, of course, bread, butter, and milk. If we get back by 11 o'clock, we shall have plenty of time. It's settled then, said Henry. Let's take the big kettle. We might find something we want to bring home. Now, where is Benny? There he is, said Jessie, pointing. Benny was coming from the dock. He had a basket of groceries with him, so they're off the island right now. They're at the grocery store. I was more saying that to remind myself. Hurry up, Benny. We are going to explore, said Henry, taking the kettle. Aren't we going to cook my clams? Asked Benny. Oh, yes, we'll be back in plenty of time to cook your clams, Benny. They started down the beach. See this funny shell, said Jessie. She dug it out with her foot. It is just like a little boat. Let's save it. She dropped it in the kettle. And here's a beautiful one, said Violet. Let's save all the shells we find. Look at this pretty purple flower, Jessie. Right in the sand, said Benny. Let's save all the flowers we find too, said Jessie. Put it in the kettle, Betty. Just then, Henry began to jump around in the sand. The others watched him in surprise. What in the world is the matter with you? Asked Jessie as Watch began to jump with him. I have a great idea. Oh, boy, cried Henry. I've seen some of you jump when you get good ideas. Sometimes I jump too when I get a good idea. Tell us, said Violet, as they all sat on the sand. Here they are. Here he is dancing around. Well, began Henry, you all know what a museum is. I don't, said Benny. Oh, sure you do, Benny, cried Henry. You must have seen pictures of museums. Places where they keep all kinds of birds and animals and flowers, and mummies if you tuned in last week. That's it, cried Henry, looking at his sister. You know what my idea is already, don't you? I think so, said Violet, and I think it is a perfectly wonderful idea. Oh, do you? Asked Henry. I wasn't sure. Well, what is this idea? Asked Jessie. Well, answered Henry, we are sure to find some interesting things on this island to keep. We found these things without looking at all. Maybe we shall find lots more. Butterflies, birds, seaweed. We could clean out the upstairs in the barn, said Jessie. And have a museum, said Benny. I can't think of anything I'd rather do, said Jessie. That will give us lots of things to do on rainy days. Violet can make little signs for everything, and you can make a table to go around the room. And I will dry the flowers between newspapers and put the shells in boxes. We wouldn't have real birds, would we? Asked Violet, looking worried. Oh, no, cried Henry. We would cut birds out of heavy paper and color them, every bird we see. Then we could cut down some small trees and put the birds on the branches, said Jessie. I've seen them in a museum. Good, said Henry. We might find old birds' nests to put up in the trees, and we will have plenty of fun this whole summer. Violet began to write down in the little book. Number 1, birds. Number 2, flowers. Number 3, seaweed. Number 4, shells. Number 5, butterflies. That's enough for a beginning, said Henry, standing up. We shall have to be on the watch every minute. And so the exploring party set out once more, looking at the trees for birds and dropping flowers and shells into the kettle. How can I write the names of these shells when we don't know their names? Asked Violet. She dropped a long, thin clam shell into the kettle, but nobody knew what it was. I suppose we could get a book about shells from the library, said Henry. Grandfather said we could go across to the mainland with Captain Daniel if we wanted to, but I don't want to leave this island even for a minute. Oh, so they haven't left the island, my bad. I thought they were at the grocery store. Get my wires crossed. Something will turn up, said Jessie. Something did turn up. The very minute the explorers came back to their barn, they saw Joe getting into the motorboat. Oh, wait! called Jessie, running down to the dock. Don't hurry, called Joe. Plenty of time. Whew. But all the children kept on running just the same. "Are you going to the stores now, Joe?" asked Jessie. "That's just where I'm going," replied Joe. "I will get anything you want, and I shall be back in an hour." "Then you will go right by the library," cried Jessie. "Would you be willing to get us some books?" "Yes." "Oh, books. That reminds me. If you have any library books at home from the school, make sure you bring them next week. I emailed your parents about a time to come in and pick up any personal belongings, stuff that might have been in your locker or at your desk. Everybody has stuff, so everybody should be coming. And if you have any library books at home, just bring them in next week, okay? If for some reason you look everywhere and you look and you look and you look and you can't find them, keep looking through the summer and bring them in the fall, okay? Also, another book reminder, the Spokane Public Library is closed, so if you're used to going down to the library to check out books, you can't check them out that way. But if you didn't know this already, maybe you've already been doing this, but if you didn't know this, you can check out books digitally online. It's weird. It's just like going to the library and checking out a book. You have to check out a book online, and then you get to keep that book digitally for, I think, 2 weeks, and then you have, or whatever the return date is, and then, yeah. So my kids have actually been doing that. So if you're interested in reading books and you're like, "Oh, the library's closed," you can still get them online. If you didn't know that, take advantage. You just need your library number, library card. If you don't have that, I'm sure you can log in to the Spokane Public Library and get that all sorted out with your parents. So just an FYI for your information. Since they're talking about library books, got me thinking. Write the names of the books you want and I will get them. "I can't," answered Jessie, giving back the paper. "We don't know the names of the books. But we want books with pictures in them to tell us the names of flowers, birds, shells, butterflies, and seaweed." Joe smiled in a weird way and said, "I could ask the girl in the library to pick them out for you." "That's right," agreed Henry. "She would know." But when Joe went into the library, he did not ask for any help. He gave the girl in the library the names of so many books that she had to write down everyone very fast. Then a small boy went off to get them. When the books were tied up, the strange handyman went away, leaving the girl and small boy looking after him in surprise. Joe was really delighted to go over to the barn and see the children. He knocked at their door that was already open with his foot, and his arms were full of books. "Oh, come in," cried Jessie. She put a cover on the kettle and came over to him at once. "Did you have any luck?" "I don't know, I hope so," said Joe. "Oh, Henry," cried Jessie, "I don't know what to do first, but I suppose I must fix the clams." "You surely must," said Henry. "We are so hungry we could eat the chairs." "But I will not open the books until after we eat." "Won't you stay for dinner, Joe?" asked Jessie. "I washed the clams 6 times, and they were cooking now. I think they're almost done." Oh, how Joe wanted to stay to dinner. He said. "That's fine," said Jessie, as if he said yes. "You're our first guest," shouted Benny with delight. "But you'll have to wash your own dishes." "Oh, no, he won't, Benny," cried Jessie. You shouldn't say such things." "I would like to wash my own dishes," said Joe, smiling, "and I would really like to see if the books are all right." Violet smiled, because the smell of the clams was good enough to make anyone hungry. While Jessie melted some butter, Violet went out and brought back 5 of Benny's purple flowers and put 1 on each place. The clams were all open when Jessie had looked in the kettle. She began to take them out with a saucepan. "Please, let me do that," said Joe. "That kettle is so heavy." "Thank you so much," said Jessie. "I can put the melted butter into the cups." She did this quickly and then poured the clam water into 5 bowls. Violet set them all on the table. "Oh dear, what shall we do for another place to sit?" asked Jessie. "Let me bring the block from my woodpile," said Joe. When Joe came back with the block of wood, Benny asked, "How do you eat clams anyway?" "Pull the clam out," said Joe. "See? Then put them in the clam water, then into the melted butter. Then you put them in your mouth," said Benny. They all laughed at Benny, but they did not talk much because they were too busy eating. Joe picked out Benny's clams for him. "I never had so much fun at dinner in my life," said Joe when the clams were gone. "But I want to help with the dishes." "All right," said Jessie. "I put the kettle of water up to heat before we sat down. You may wipe the dishes if you really want to." Then, when the dishwater was hot, the dishes were washed as soon were all put away into the cupboard. Then Jessie said, "Now, show us the books, Joe." Chapter 6, The Museum. Picture. Weren't there many pictures in the last chapter? Maybe 2. Joe and the children sat around the table to look at the books. Henry took off the paper and found 12 interesting-looking books. The butterfly book, said Jessie. The shell book, said Violet. The flower book, said Henry. Oh, these 3 books must belong to a set. Just look at the beautiful pictures. The handyman seemed to be just as interested as the children. He soon found a picture of the purple flower at the table. It was the beach pea. Then Joe showed the children the names of the shells they had found. He saw that Henry was staring at them. How do you ever even learn all this? Asked Henry. Oh, I just picked it up, said Joe. I used to live near the beach. Joe saw that he would have to be more careful because it appeared that he knew too much for a handyman. And so he said he would have to get back to his work. After Joe had gone, Henry said, let's look upstairs. He ran up the stairs and the others followed with the dog. First, Henry opened the big windows. Then he looked around the room. The pile of straw was at one end. In the corner stood an old, straight-backing chair. Jessie went over and shook it. Wonderful, said Jessie. We'll use that when Grandfather comes to call. Think of having a real guest chair. I wish we had some boards, said Henry. I thought we might find some up here. What is this? Asked Benny. Boards, shouted Henry. Some 8-foot boards were piled on the floor under the straw. Well now, cried Henry, how lucky we are. I'll get right to work. I can carry the boards down under the trees and saw them to make more tables. I ought to dry the flowers, said Jessie. Violet can look up their names and Benny can help carry down the boards. We ought to have lots of newspapers for drying the flowers, said Violet, going downstairs. And we haven't a single newspaper. Joe has, said Benny, to everyone's surprise. He gets 2 every day, so he must have a lot. You go ask him, Benny, will you? Asked Violet. Excuse me. Yes, I do have my coffee. I got the Hulk today, the Incredible Hulk. This is actually my first superhero coffee mug. You can see it's really wore out. Like up here, it's like faded and like... But somehow it has lasted. I've had other coffee mugs break. My first superhero one has lasted throughout the years. I would have to say I've had this for 7 years, maybe 8 years. I've had it for a while. Okay. I lost my place. I get distracted. Just ask him for older ones, and be sure to thank Joe. Old newspapers. When Benny arrived at Captain Daniel's hut, he knocked at the door. Hello, called the voice. Benny walked around to the other side of the hut. Joe and the captain sat there cleaning fish. Have you any old newspapers? Asked Benny. Not to read, but to dry flowers between. We certainly have, said Joe, smiling. He pointed to some piles of old newspapers. Excuse me. Oh, 1 pile will be enough, cried Benny, delighted. Jessie only wanted a dozen. Thank you, Joe. She will be surprised. Jessie was surprised and pleased. Have you a thin board about a foot long? She called to Henry. How's this? Asked Henry. Perfect. Go get it, Benny, said Jessie, but she had used the wrong words for Benny and the right words for Watch. When Watch, the dog, heard go get it, he ran out of the barn to Henry, who put the board carefully in the dog's mouth. Then Watch ran back and laid the board at Jessie's feet. Good dog. Jessie was so pleased that she stopped her work and gave him a piece of bread. So would I. The girls smoothed the flowers on the newspapers just as they had done in school. Excuse me. Then they covered the flowers with more papers and a board and put a large stone on top. I hear a motorboat, said Henry. I'm going down to see, said Benny. There might be something for us. Jessie said, don't be too sure. To her surprise, he came back in a few minutes with a big box. We did get something, he cried. It's from Grandfather. Captain Daniel said so. Henry opened the big box. Sweaters, he said. Benny took his at once. I know mine is the red one, he said, and guess what the purple one is? Violets. There was a beautiful blue one for Jessie and a brown one for Henry. They all put them on to see how they looked. Excuse me, I'm yawning, coughing. Pretty soon I'll probably be sneezing. Grandfather thinks it's going to get cold, said Jessie. So do I, answered Henry. I think we should be glad of these presents very soon. Now my eyes are starting to water, and my allergies are coming in at all angles right now. Woo! When Jessie woke up late that night, she heard rain falling on the roof of the barn. She put on her sweater, shoes, and shut all the windows. Henry got up to help shut the barn door. Now, I guess we'll keep dry, he whispered. The rain is coming in somewhere, said Jessie softly. They listened, and they could hear the sound of water dropping near the stove. We mustn't let the stove get wet, cried Henry. Get the big kettle. Henry put it under the stream of water. The water seemed to come faster and faster into the kettle. We can't go to sleep because the kettle might run over, said Henry after a minute. What's the matter, Jessie? Called Benny in a sleepy voice. Rain is coming through the roof, said Henry. You go back to sleep. So here they are. There's the kettle catching the water. Henry's got his bucket. Sleepy-eyed Benny, what's going on? Excuse me. I can't, cried Benny. Rain is coming in my window, too, and all over me. Oh, dear, cried Jessie. Where is the flashlight? With the flashlight, the two older children soon saw that the wall near Benny's bed was very wet. A stream of water was running in under his window. Get up, Benny, cried Henry. Benny came out slowly. I don't like this bed, he said. He began to cry. I like my bed at Grandfather's house and I want to go home. It's nice and dry there. Now, Benny, don't be like that, cried Jessie. You're a big boy and you ought to be up helping us. You wouldn't like it if we left you at home, would you? No, said Benny. This idea woke him up and he started to help move his bed out. What's the matter? Called Violet. It's raining in this barn, cried Benny. Maybe on you too. No, it's not, said Violet, but I can hear it coming in somewhere. It's coming in all over the place, cried Henry. I wish we had more kettles, said Jessie. I'll put one pail under this window and the other pail in the corner. We can't go to sleep, said Violet. The pails and kettle will run over. The rest of you can go to sleep, said Henry. I will stay up and empty the pails. Benny, you get into my bed. I think we have found all the places where the rain is coming in. Benny was glad to get into bed, and he was soon asleep again. Excuse me. I got a scratch. Henry sat up for an hour. He emptied the pails once more, and then crawled in beside Benny. The rain had almost stopped, thank goodness. I'll fix the roof tomorrow, he thought, and maybe Joe will help me. He's a very handy man. The next morning, it was still raining. The children dressed and ate breakfast and then watched the rain. One of us must go outside for groceries, said Henry. And I think I'm the one. My clothes are going to get awfully wet. So what shall I do while they dry? Where are all your other clothes? Asked Benny. Henry pointed to the clothesline over the stove. They aren't dry yet, said Jessie. I'm sorry now that I washed them. Henry could go to bed while his clothes dry, said Benny. Say, listen, Benny, cried Henry. How would you like to go to bed? You get busy and think of something I could put on. Okay. Jessie could make you a suit out of a blanket, said Benny suddenly. I really could, cried Jessie. It's lucky we brought along Violet's work bag. I'll make you a pair of pants out of a blanket, and you could put on your new sweater while your things dry. Good for you, Jessie, said Henry. Now, let's be sure we have thought of everything we want, so I won't have to go out again. I have an idea, said Benny. Why don't you put on your swimming suit to go outside, and then your clothes won't get wet? Excuse me. That is a good idea, Benny. What would we do without you? Said Henry. Hoping this coffee helps that scratch. Benny, you are wonderful, agreed Jessie. Benny laughed and said, I know you could make pants out of a blanket if you had to. I'll put on my swimming suit, said Henry. You be thinking of what you want. Jessie said, there will be some potatoes in the box because I ordered them. And all that bread and milk. Do you think you can carry it all? I'm going to make some clam chowder and I'll need onions from the garden. The onions aren't very big, but enough. I'll get the onions first, said Henry, appearing in his swimsuit. And give them to you through the door. I think I can carry everything else. Henry handed the little onions to Jessie through the partly open door. Winnie came in. With the basket of groceries, he looked as if he had been swimming. After a rub down with a towel, Henry put on his dry clothes and was ready for work. This is a perfect day to work on our museum things, he said. I can make some boxes for the shells and butterflies. Soon the table was covered with wood, paper, paints, and tools. I just read that. At 11:30, Jessie stopped her work to make the chowder. I'm going to use these little onions for the chowder, she said. Jessie melted some butter and put the onions in it. Then she added water and salt and sliced potatoes. When the potatoes were done, that scratch does not want to go away. She added the cut up clams and at the very last minute, the milk. Soon when dinner was ready, the 4 children took their bowls of chowder and sat down, not minding the rain at all. Jessie, you can make anything, cried Henry. Excuse me. Yum, yum. Jessie could make a good chowder, said Benny. After dinner, the children painted birds and fixed the feathery seaweed for their museum. Henry went upstairs to put up the tables. By the time it was dark, the Alden Museum was very well started. I think the birds are the best thing in the museum, said Benny. But Benny did not know what they were to find the next day. Dun, dun, dun! What are they going to find tomorrow? We'll find out tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry about all my coughing and my itchy throat and coffee sips. Just came out of nowhere. What am I going to do today, you ask? Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do today. I am going to drink more coffee. I just emailed your parents not too long ago, so I got that taken care of. I am going to fix my wife's brakes on her car. When she slows down, it is so squeaky. It's like the highest pitch squeak in the world. You can't even have the windows down. It's so bad, and it's long. So her rotors are warped, so I have to go get those and replace the brakes at the same time. It's not too expensive, and it's not too hard, but it's got to be done. Slowing down is really important, so brakes are very important. That's what my plan is for the day. Probably pull some weeds in the afternoon. If it's not raining, hopefully it doesn't rain today. I was surprised when it rained yesterday. Those are my days talking about the weather. Sorry if I'm boring you. I hope you have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow. If you're wondering about that spider, I never found it after the video. I stopped the video and I looked for it again, and I was like, oh, he's gone. So he's still in my game room somewhere, watching me. Maybe he's listening to the books. Maybe he likes the books. Maybe I should read Charlotte's Web next. Joking. Spider joke. Bad spider joke, sorry. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow.